So just for those of you who are just joining us for this session, I want to give you kind of a little introduction here for Rachel. So she is a fellow YouTuber. I stumbled across her channel as I was going through myself, trying to learn about low content things to supplement what I'm already doing, and to take the great artwork that I spent, thousands of dollars on my books, and also think of other ways that I could repurpose it and continue to build a catalog that would be helpful for as a great supplement to my books, my children's books. So Rachel has been presenting on YouTube and has a fantastic following. She does, it's passive income, low content books, and so much more. And she has been so open in sharing her knowledge with me. I recently appeared on her channel, and now I get the privilege of introducing Rachel here to our group, our folks here, and it's Rachel Harrison Sund. And Rachel, tell us a little bit more about, your background and how you got started with low content books.
Yeah, sure. So, I've been publishing since about 2014. I was working as an art director at the time, and I kind of just wanted to find a way out of the 9 to 5. So I was just looking for ways to make money online, and I came across self-publishing as a business model, basically. So the idea was I would do research on Amazon, find out what types of books people were actively purchasing. Mm-hmm. Then I would hire a writer to create those books, and then I would sell them and generate royalties from those books. So I started off doing that with some nonfiction and some fiction. And then I came across this idea of low content, which, notebooks, planners, guest books, that sort of a thing. And with my design background, obviously I could make all of those myself and, obviously dramatically reduce my expenses. And that's kind of when things really took off for me. I was able to start generating a full-time income from that. And, I just kind of had enough people asking me how I did that. So I decided to create my own blog and YouTube channel, and eventually my course, Low Content Profits. And now I actually spend most of my time helping other people learn how to create a business out of creating and selling low content books on Amazon as well.
Do you have any kind of tips and tricks, or like what makes for a great selling low content book? Any differentiators that you would recommend if people are going to consider they must do these things to get ready and prepared?
The main things are, I think there's 2 or 3 things. The first one is demand. Like, is there an actual demand for your book? If similar books are out there selling, and most of these low content book ideas, they are actually selling. So, we know that there is a market for them. And are they selling? You want to take a look at bestseller ranks of similar books, see if people are actually buying them, just to find out, if that demand is actually there. Mm-hmm. And they need to be discoverable. So, we've talked about keywords quite a bit. You said that's something that you talk about quite a bit with your authors. Discoverability, you need to have good keyword selection, good category selection. In some cases, you might want to advertise. If you've got a list, you definitely want to be promoting there. And then the book has to be high quality. It's got to be eye-catching. It's got to be well-designed. It's got to meet some sort of a customer need. So I think if you can nail all those 3 areas, in demand, discoverable, high quality, that right there is the simple recipe for a successful low content book.
Nice. I love that. So when it comes to producing those low content books, I know that the research you talk about, because you mentioned that all of these different things need to take place, but is there also a great deal of research you do before you start tackling this outside of what you mentioned? The main thing is, that's kind of the key core of it. I want to make sure, is there a market? So are customers actively searching for similar books? And you can find that out just by starting to type out your idea or keyword into the drop down menu. If what you're looking for comes up, then you know that someone has actively searched for a similar book. So the little Labradoodle books, I have all these cute characters and things, and I'm thinking notebooks. like, I assume that there's a great need for a notebook, but, and if I search, there are going to be plenty of them for sale. So how do I know, what do I do? What, you know, is there really a demand for it? If there's, when is there too much competition? And how do I distinguish, have those books of mine stand out?
Well, that's where I think you want to drill down into the keywords. So for me, I use a tool like Publisher Rocket. There are a couple of free ones out there, but I like Publisher Rocket because it's gives you search volumes, so you can find out how many people a month are searching for particular keywords. Personally, I like to see a search volume of around 1,000 a month. It's not like a hard cutoff. It's just like a general parameter. Then I know that, okay, there's a fair amount of people looking for, notebooks with sparkles. So this could be something that could be lucrative for me. Just kind of rattle off in your mind, like if anyone was going to look for a book like mine, what exactly would they be typing into the search bar? Like, how could they type something in and be led to my book? So, you've got your little dog themed book. So maybe it's dog themed activity books for kids, and just go through the list, see if they're in the drop down. That's a really good way to see if people are searching for it. And then if you have a free tool or a paid tool like Publisher Rocket, you can type those in and you'll get all the related keywords come up as well. So that shaves off a lot of time. You might type in something to do with notebooks, and then you might get 200 keywords come up. I'm not generally looking at the number of competitors anymore. That used to be something I looked at, but now, like, frankly, there's just so many. Now I'm just focusing on the quality of the competitors, because there could be 10,000 competitors, but if all the books on the first page have terrible reviews and they're not selling, then they're not really my competition. Those are kind of the two things I'm balancing. I'm looking, is there an adequate search volume to warrant me putting effort into this book? And do I actually think I can beat the competition? Do I think I can create something that's as good as, or hopefully better than what's already out there? So again, there's not really like hard cutoffs. It's some of it's, gut feeling too, but it's generally just, if there's only one or two books on that first page that have got really great reviews, I feel like, okay, I can probably squeeze in there. So that's basically my entire research process. Just kind of involves me going back and forth between the Amazon search, checking out bestseller ranked, are these words in the drop down? And then that initial research, I just take over to Publisher Rocket normally. And then I'm just typing them in. I'm seeing all the other related keywords that come up. And sometimes that might lead me down a completely different path. Something else might come up that's related, and it's got, perhaps a higher search volume, lower competition. And then I think, oh, this looks like a great idea. And then you've got all your related keywords with you for when you're creating your keyword strings, when you go to publish your book. Now with you and your authors, you've already got a published book out there.
And so we have these great assets in, beautiful illustrations, maybe some ideas on things we want to do. Like my anti-bullying book, for example, there's like activities and things that I put together for that. I never really thought of it about anything more like journals or notebooks before, until I started getting exposed to your channel and following what you were doing. And
it's great because, you could create an entire series of these books all based on your original core book.
Right.
And then what happens is you create a little bit of a web online, right? And they're all directing the audience members, the customers, to the other books. You could add something in the back of your original book, like check out, we've got this, maybe it's a diary or a notebook or an activity book, a coloring book, sky's the limit kind of a thing. That page in the back could then be inside your activity book and your coloring book. And now you're able to generate traffic to all of your other books via all of the other books. So, someone in your position or any of our authors are in this great position to have kind of a built-in audience for that already. So
I love that.
Yeah.
And anything we can do to take advantage of the investment we've already made and make it go farther, I think that's an amazing opportunity.
And like you said, you've already got so many assets. You've already got illustrations that can be repurposed and, potentially another little income stream.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been doing recently is just going online and ordering a bunch of journals and notebooks and things that are I just want to see what they're doing. What's their content look like? How are they structuring things on the inside? And that's
Yeah.
one of the things you're going to talk to us a little bit today is about your process you use in creating this and what tools, like what goes into creating something that's really will sell on the inside. And you said you do this all yourself, right?
I do. I mean, I do have a design background, so I'll put that out there. As you know, designing a book can be, it's not as simple as it might seem. For anyone that is kind of just starting out, or they don't have a professional design background, I would still recommend some professional desktop publishing software. But Affinity Suite is the one that I recommend to everyone else. The Adobe Suite, that is a monthly subscription, whereas Affinity is a one-time cost. You can buy each program separately, and you really only need Affinity Publisher, and it's wonderful. That is a dedicated desktop publishing software that I would recommend. Now, a lot of people doing low content books and even some children's books and things like that will use PowerPoint. And while PowerPoint it's a presentation software, so it's not actually meant for desktop publishing, but you can actually still design your book in that program and get good results. So I know a lot of low content publishers that use PowerPoint. They're just familiar with it. It's something they already have on their computer. And if that's where you're comfortable, you can get great results that way too. Canva is a great design tool. I find it gets a bit cumbersome if you're doing multi-page documents, like a full book. It just depends on how complex your book is, but you definitely can, especially for someone who doesn't have a design background. There is a limit. I think you get 100 pages for a PDF. Of course, that doesn't really matter because you could do 2 different files and merge the PDF after the fact.
Right.
But for covers, I would definitely recommend Canva. And you can do interiors, but it could get a little bit clunky, especially if you're doing things like a line notebook. You kind of have to draw out the lines, and it's just not as seamless and kind of streamlined as the other programs I mentioned.
I've not played around with the software that you mentioned, but that's certainly something that I'm going to be looking at because I've heard that can be a really helpful for people who are looking to create design their own books, whether it's low content or even just laying out their children's picture book. It's a learning curve, but once you know how to do it, then that's a less expense that you need for moving forward, as long as you've got that design eye.
You could even just have a graphic designer look it over at the end. Like if you wanted to kind of save money in that area, you could create the design and give it to a graphic designer at the end to just, are there any tweaks that need to be made? And, obviously that would be a big cost savings than having a designer create the entire thing for you from scratch. Planners are pretty complex. So I wouldn't recommend Canva for something like that because planners have a ton of elements. They've got a lot more text. So you're probably going to want to create things like text styles where you can just, at the click of a button, adjust all the fonts at once. If you're putting in like calendar pages, it's a lot more complex of a job. So that you really do want something like an Adobe InDesign or an Affinity publisher if you're going to do a planner. PowerPoint, again, I mean, you could probably get by, but it's going to be more cumbersome.
Yeah.
It's just a much more of a streamlined experience if you're using, Affinity or InDesign. But I mean, of course, there's going to be a lot more of a learning curve to begin with. So, but once you're over that hump at the beginning, then things become a lot faster.
It never ceases to amaze me how many amazing templates are out there for Canva. And for example, on the planner side, I think I spent maybe $27 and ended up with a huge template that I could just go in and install on my Canva, and I can drag and drop the pages. But so much content being developed for Canva.
If you're using templates, I obviously always recommend customizing them because you want your book to be unique. You don't want anyone else's to be like yours.
Right.
You want to be providing as much value as you can. And part of that is creating something unique. But templates can be great to just take the bulk of the work, off your hands, and you want to go in and tweak a few things, or maybe you want to add watermarks on each of your page.
Yeah, you were saying
So
that about like even just using your illustrations as like a watermark, like a light watermark on the page. That's brilliant. I never thought of that.
yeah, so I mean, if you've got something like that, like a template built specifically for Canva, where you can just go in and make those adjustments, then I mean, that's great because the bulk of the work's done for you, presumably by a professional. So
Right.
things already look good. You know, there's a nice layout already in place, and you're just kind of icing the cake, so to speak. Because I'm only doing low content books and I do them at fairly high volume, I don't actually purchase any ISBNs. For me, I treat this as kind of a business model unto itself. So I'm personally not concerned with going wide because I'm just sort of using Amazon as the biggest marketplace. You might want to consider buying ISBNs because you've already got this your original book as your original asset, where you probably do want the option of going wide with that. And if you want to have these available as a package, or you might just want to keep it all together under one sort of umbrella of an asset. If you strictly just want to try and use this as a little bit of extra income that you can get just from Amazon, then by all means, I think the free ISBN would work beautifully for that. So I think it's just a matter of like figuring out what your overarching plan is for your series of books. And if going wide is something that you want to do, then I would definitely recommend buying your own. So it's just, I think, a kind of a personal, whatever your ultimate goal or plan is with your entire series, I would make the decision, coming from that place. If you're not versed in InDesign and you've never used these programs before, it's actually not my first choice for someone who's starting out. It's very expensive, big learning curve. The next thing I would suggest would be Affinity. There is going to be a learning curve, but it's a very robust program. You obviously don't need to know how everything works. I've actually got a bunch of videos on kind of how to start out with Affinity Publisher on my channel. That just go over the basics of what someone doing a low content book would actually need, so that you're not fiddling around with every single tool. There is a suite. So there's Affinity Publisher, which is the desktop publishing. There's Affinity Designer, which is vector editing, which 9 times out of 10, no one's going to need this whole suite. You can basically do everything you need in Affinity Publisher. Unless you're someone who does a lot of vector illustrations yourself, or you want to do a lot of edits to vector artwork, then I would recommend, okay, you're probably going to need Affinity Designer as well, because that's where you do like heavy vector editing, but you can still do some simple vector editing in Publisher. So 9 times out of 10, Publisher is the only one you need. And unless you're doing anything with photographs, you're almost never going to need Affinity Photo.
What are some of your best sellers? What have you seen really has taken off for you? Are there specific genres that do better, or does it vary?
So for me, over the last few years, I've focused almost exclusively on planners. That's where I have had the most success. And over the last couple of years, actually, most of my sales have been coming from the UK. So now I really kind of target the UK planner market. I've kind of taken advantage of the fact that I actually come from the UK, and I've grown up with all the lingo and the slang. And I've used a lot of that on the covers of my planners, and I've had a lot of success there. A lot of the keywords are going to be different. That's another thing, if you're targeting a different market, you want to do your keyword research specific to that market. So I might actually create the exact same planner, and I'll do the planner version on the US store, all my keyword research for the US store, and then actually create the exact same design, but I'll target that to the UK store. So it'll be called a diary, not a planner. And all of my keywords will be relevant to the UK store. And my categories will be relevant to the UK store. So in that way, I'm actually creating, kind of 2 books for the price of one,
I see.
So that's another thing to consider. You can stretch your mileage out. Maybe you want to offer, you could do this for your main fiction work as well. You could create a version in another language and target a different Amazon store.
There's also the opportunity. It dawns on me when I heard you talk about the fact that the UK uses the word planner. I have authors that I work with closely in Australia, and they use that same, they call it a diary. And
Yeah.
now Amazon is printing in Australia. So maybe there's an opportunity to start targeting more of that audience as well.
Yeah. So for me, that's kind of where I've had the most success. I've had some other outliers. Like in the beginning, I did a bunch of notebooks and journals. The notebooks, I think, like if you're just starting off with notebooks, I think you're going to have a really tough time. There's just a bazillion of them out there. I think in your case, it'd be a little bit different because, like we were talking about earlier, you can tie that back to your fiction book. For you and your authors, I mean, a notebook could still be viable because
Mhm.
you're tying it back to that original book. You can be leading people to your notebook from your original book. I mean, you can use this in your description.
Okay.
Check out the author, check out my author page, and see the other books in the series, however you want to word it. So I don't think notebooks are a dead end for you or anyone in your group. I think for someone like me who's coming at it from like, this is a business model, this is attached to nothing, I'm just throwing another notebook out there into the sea of notebooks.
Right.
I quickly dropped that. I was doing some journals, 1 line a day journals. I did quite a number of guest books. Some of those are doing quite well. Um, Back to school, I was doing like Cornell notes, anything that you can tie into a school subject matter or yeah, like a subject in school. So some of those were doing quite well, but most of my success has been out of my planners. I've had a lot of success, like I said earlier, just putting, slogans or, catchy phrases, things like that. And yeah, so like I said, now I'm focused almost exclusively on planners, and most of them are targeted to the UK market.
Yeah. The other thing it makes me think about too, I'm in the midst of getting ready to launch a Kickstarter, and I see this as a great way to add things like rewards to a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
You get a notebook or you get a diary that's similar that, I've got one author who's got a middle grade book, and it's just a fun summertime, go visit my cousins in the country. And what a great target, middle grade targeted, that would pair beautifully with a journal or a plan, a journal or notebook or something like that for that audience. And
Yeah,
Kickstarter
exactly.
campaigns, people are always looking for what else can I add to it, or what can I put as a stretch goal, or things like that. So this kind of thing strikes me as something that could be used there as well.
Yeah, and there's just so many possibilities too. I mean, you've got, coloring book, activity book, notebook, you could do
Mhm.
prompted journals, workbooks, puzzle books, crossword, word searches. And then you could just really get creative. You mentioned that you had come up with a song, I think, or you had a
Yeah.
song created. I mean, you could put that into a book. You could do a sheet music book. If
Oh,
you had a
how
collection of
fun.
songs, wouldn't that be like, how
That would
amazing would
be
that be?
amazing. And we could just, have it, the song that's created ends up also having a footnote about the book that goes with it, and that where children can get it or something.
Yeah, I mean, even if
Cool.
you didn't have enough music to put in a book, you could have that sheet of music at the back of some of your other books, just as like a fun little extra.
Oh, I love
You could
that
really just
idea.
get as creative as you want. If you've already got a book out there that you're putting a lot of promotional effort and marketing into, and you're getting some traction there,
Mhm.
I mean, that is just a great jumping off point for any of these other books that could, be companions. One thing to keep in mind is I very much see the 80-20 principle at play in my book. So most like the income is not spread evenly. Like
Mhm.
I've got quite a lot of books that have never sold even one copy. So I just want to put that out there. 80% of the income comes from 20% of the books.
Mhm.
And so there's a huge chunk of books that never made a single sale. Then I've got a big chunk of books that maybe sell one or two a month. And then I've got a small handful of books that are making the lion's share.
That's pretty amazing that you're able to make a full-time income generating things just from your keyword research and not having to pay Amazon for any of the advertisement. That's amazing. Have you done anything like that with pushing these low content books out to see how they would do in distribution?
I haven't. I mean, apart from clicking off the expanded distribution box, which has kind of just always been a nice little bonus. When you get one of those orders coming through, it's great. You know, you check your sales and, oh, wow, I sold, 150 units through expanded distribution. They're actually cutting down a lot that now with a lot of the low content books. I think there's been a lot of people abusing this. I don't know if I want to call it a system, but like I said, I'm doing this as a business model, and obviously there are other people doing it as well. And there's a lot of people out there that do not put the same level of time and effort and quality into these books. So for Ingram Spark, they actually don't allow these types of books to be published through them anymore. And so consequently, because Ingram Spark is kind of the parent company of the expanded distribution, I think most low content books are now no longer qualifying for expanded distribution. I think you can always tick that box, and it seems like some kind of go through and some don't. But for me, it's not something I've pursued because I was always gaining enough traction just simply by, just pursuing Amazon as my main my only marketplace. And then any sales I got through expanded distribution, I always kind of looked at as kind of a bonus.
So I was going to ask you next if you had done anything with like Etsy or anything like an Etsy store. So there's a lot of like very custom, pretty notebooks and artsy things and different sites like that. It sounds like you have not explored that at this point.
I haven't. And again, for me, it was always about this business model and what could keep my costs down and, where I could kind of put all of my focus. And Etsy just seemed like, okay, now I've got to learn this other platform. And now we're talking about like physical things that aren't print on demand. There are some of my students in my group that have Etsy shops and they're experimenting and actually having some like great success. I had a woman in my group a couple of weeks ago, and she helps people to create really beautiful high-end planners. So with her and her students, she's teaching people how to create these gorgeous planners, and then they're actually ordering inventory, from China and spending thousands of dollars, and they're selling them on their Etsy shops and their Shopify. And that's definitely just like a whole other machine. Really big investment involved there. Obviously the end result, they get these beautiful, stunning. I mean, I love planners. I love anything beautiful, like a beautiful book that I can hold in my hand and open. Like I'm probably, the person that's going out and buying those planners. But for me, when I started, like I was really looking, how can I get out of my 9-to-5 job? What's the fastest way for me to use the skills that I have and just put all my efforts here and do that? That was my goal. So I really did choose the path of least resistance, which was print on demand, KDP, Amazon. I've got my design skills, so I know I'm going to be able to create some quality books. And then the rest is just kind of all taken care of for me. So yeah, I've got my YouTube channel, but my free Facebook group, it's got a few thousand people in there, all publishing low content books. And it's just a great place to get help and tips. Everyone is very helpful in there. A lot of new people, but a lot of people that have been there for quite some time too, and really willing to jump in and offer assistance. So it's a great place to go if it's, something you're thinking about, just to get some help from other people that are kind of either in the same position, just starting out, or, other people that have been doing it for a while and have some experience and can lend a hand.
And I can attest to the fact that Rachel's YouTube channel is amazing and so filled with information on this topic as well. Rachel, I know we don't have much time left, but in the last 10 minutes or so, if you would be open to it, would you mind throwing back the curtain a little bit and showing us like what an InDesign looks like, and like opening up and showing us one of your designs in progress?
Well, I can show you a planner that I have put together.
Okay. That would be wonderful. We'd love that.
So this is my InDesign file. This is my interior. I've just got my little, dedication page at the beginning. This is a cat themed one. So I've got little cat themed quotes that I've kind of sprinkled throughout here. So this is an 18-month planner. And then I just kind of go into the calendar month. And then from there, it's just like a weekly view planner. Unfortunately we can't have things like tabs on the side, but one kind of workaround is to just do like a visual element, just so when people are flipping through it, it's just, for easy reference.
Right. I love that you have this template here already to use for people to be able to not have to reinvent this. So that's amazing.
I mean, when this file is actually, I would say, through 4 years old, probably every year. And now, because I don't even have time to do this myself anymore, I have a designer I work with, and I actually just send it to her and she just does all the updates for me.
Nice.
But I mean, it's pretty simple.
And you said that these templates are included with your course. I've been trying to find your course to get a link to it, and I've not been able to come up with it. Maybe it's just I'm not searching correctly. But
so it's a little bit weird, but it's all part of a funnel. So basically, I've got a free masterclass. It's basically just a free webinar. It's pre-recorded. It's not live or anything like that. That's actually where you can go to find out more just about this as a business model in general.
Okay.
I can drop the link in there.
Yeah,
and then
that would be
also
wonderful, because I think many of the people that are here and watching the replay would love to just follow your thought process and get some of your templates and be a part of your community.
Yeah, I mean, I can drop those into the chat as well. So I can drop a link to, I've got a free guide, which is how to create, or 3 steps to creating your first low content book in less than a day. And there's a link in there. I'll drop the link to the masterclass as well. But the link to the masterclass is also in the free guide. And it basically just expands on the free guide. I kind of like talk through it. And then there's information about my program in there as well.
Beautiful. Have you ever considered making your InDesign templates available for others to customize and, throw their beautiful covers on and be able to use that as a jumping off point?
I actually do. So for all of the members of my course, Low Content Profits Academy, that's one of the bonuses is I believe there's maybe 10 or 12 templates. So, I mean, obviously they can be used as is, but I always encourage customization because you do want to add as much value as you can and make it, unique and your own.
One thing that I did pop into my head as you were scrolling past that last look and feel there, are there certain sizes of planners and notebooks that you've found sell better than others? Or is it all over the place and depends?
So I usually find the 6x9s sell the best for me. However, I've also had pretty good success creating the exact same planner in multiple sizes. So I tend to do an 8x10, 6x9, and I do a pocket size, which is, I can't remember the measurements for that right now. It's kind of wonky. It's got like 2 decimal places to it. But okay. It's kind of the smaller pocket size. The 6x9 definitely sells the best, but you can get more mileage out of one design by creating the exact same cover or, the same planner essentially in 3 different sizes.
Thank you so much for being here with us and for offering such great content and great information. I think we need to get you back and just do like a little workshop day of
I would love to.
An hour or so of just like critique with Rachel and going through some people.
It's one of my favorite things. I would absolutely
love that.
But thank you so much for having me. Lovely to speak to everyone. And I'd love to be back sometime.
All right. Thank you.